we've completed our first leg of the journey. We're at LAX. Made the trek over to Terminal 3, and now we are waiting to board in 15-20 minutes for our 15-hour journey. But we did find out that we got seats together, which we weren't sure if we were going to, because it is a Delta basic flight. So whatever that means, they don't give us our seats until we get to the gate, but we have seats together and they're window seats. 15 hours. I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do. I over-caffeinated myself today, so I don't get sleepy during the day. So I'm hoping once I get on the flight and by the time we take off that I will be sleepy. But even then, I don't think I can sleep for 15 hours, so I do have some movies. Delta usually has some good movies as well, so I think we'll be okay, but I'm still a little worried. I think this is my longest flight ever. It doesn't get much longer than 15 hours, right? I think the longest flight in the world is like 16 or 18 hours. So we're really getting up into that territory, so yeah. Wish us luck. Welcome back to our apartment. We just got back today after another long travel day, 15-hour flight from Sydney to LA, and then 3-hour flight back to Seattle. Anyway, welcome back to the vlog. My name is Rio. I'm just a 20-something, just starting my vlogging journey in order to just document my life a little better. This right here is Sasha. She's not our cat, but she's our brother's cat that we're taking care of. And it looks like she wants to make a vlogging debut. So, Sasha, say hi. No? Speaking of, I know in the first vlog that I said that I was going to be vlogging my ordinary life, but here I am in episode 2 talking about a trip going all the way across the world. The irony is not lost on me on that. I don't take trips like this very often, but I really wanted to document this and I really wanted to share some of the highlights from the trip as well. This trip was originally planned because Crystal's aunt invited us to come with her. We planned this a few months ago, got the flights. We were able to get flights with miles, which was nice. And accommodations were taken care of because we were staying with family. And so we were able to make it work even during the busy holiday season. Anyway, I wanted to recap the trip and highlight some of the best places that we went to. So if you ever have a chance to go to Sydney, then you know where to go. A couple places we frequented a lot on our trip was the Central Business District, or CBD, and also Circular Quay. The CBD is what Sydney calls their downtown area, and it's where we did a lot of our shopping. Within the CBD, I think the highlight has to be the Queen Victoria building, or QVB as they call it. It's a 19th century building, I believe, that's been modernized over the last few decades to be a shopping mall. On the first floor, there are a bunch of name brands and the higher fashion brands, but in the underground, as well as the levels above level 1, there are a bunch of different shops that are more local to Sydney that were more interesting. Even though the shopping is pretty good at QVB, I think the highlight has to be the architecture of the building. Like I said, it's built in the 19th century, so it has some old, I believe, Romanesque architecture style, and it is just a beautiful thing to look at while we're shopping. But it's full of intricate details. It has some stained glass windows and beautiful staircases throughout as well. So if you're ever in this area, I recommend going to QVB not only just for the shopping, but also to take a look at the architectures. Just a few blocks down from the CBD or a couple light rail stops or train stop away is Circular Quay, which is the harbor right next to the Sydney Opera House and the Royal Botanical Gardens. Circular Quay is sandwiched by the Sydney Opera House on one side and then the Harbour Bridge on the other, and so it really leads to some magnificent photos. You get some great views and great angles of the Sydney Opera House, and if you're on the other side, you get some great photos and great views of the Harbour Bridge. For being, I think, the most touristy part of Sydney, it's really not that chaotic or crowded. I always felt safe. I didn't feel like I didn't really get overwhelmed when I was there, which was really nice. It's well spaced. It's a great place to walk. A great place to just absorb the vibes of Sydney, in my opinion. The Sydney Opera House, we went on a couple of occasions. The first time we went, maybe on the second day of the trip, and took a guided tour of the building, which was really nice. It took us throughout the outside of the building and also into some of the opera halls. So we got a glimpse of the theaters and got a really good history of the building as well. We were also able to catch a show at the Opera House, which is a bucket list experience in my book. And we were also able to catch an opera. It wasn't a full opera, it was kind of like a greatest hits of opera type of thing that was easily digestible for newcomers to opera, which would be myself and Crystal. And so it was like an hour and a half opera that highlighted some of the most famous arias in opera, and I think it was an hour and a half, but inclusive of a 20-minute intermission, so it was really digestible. And not only were the performers extremely talented, they made opera very approachable and very friendly, took away that kind of intimidation factor of opera, which they say that sometimes a barrier for people to go to an opera, and so I enjoyed that. And if that's something that's available when you're in Sydney, I do highly recommend catching that, or if not that, then definitely catching a show. I think the vibes at the Opera House in the theaters are immaculate. I think the acoustics in there were wonderful, but also just catching the energy of the Opera House when there's an event going on, I think that was a different experience than going on the tour, so highly recommend that. On the other side of the Opera House from Circular Quay is the Royal Botanical Gardens. This is actually surprisingly one of my favorite things that we did in Sydney. It's extremely close to the city, but it provides such a great escape from the hustle and bustle of the city. It also provides some great shade and a great refuge from the harsh sunlight in the summertime as well. The botanical gardens are just beautifully kept. There's so many different types of plants and different types of flowers all throughout the garden. As much as there are a lot of tourists at the gardens, there were a bunch of people that looked like locals and were just taking in the greenery and taking in the peace and quiet away from the city, which I thought was really nice. And I think that would be somewhere that I would frequent if I was living in Sydney. We ended our walk at the Royal Botanical Gardens by going to the Art Gallery of New South Wales, or I think half of the Art Gallery of New South Wales. We only went to the newer building. But again, this is a great refuge from the heat. It's an air-conditioned space and free to the public as well. There were a lot of kids there when we were there because it was summer break. The kids had just gone on summer break, and so there were a lot of interactive exhibits for the kiddos to enjoy. But outside of that, they have some great collections. One of my favorites was the Aboriginal art collection that they have on the ground floor of the building. But again, this is just such a great place to walk around and just soak in the energy of the city, and the architecture of the building is really beautiful as well. One of the day trips that we took while we were in town was to go to Manly Beach. And I think this is one of the best things to do if you're just trying to get a taste of the city. In order to get to Manly, you can either drive, but I think a much better option is to take the ferry, which we did. The ferry takes off from Circular Quay right next to the Circular Quay train station, just a few steps away. We jumped on the ferry around, I think, lunchtime, around 11 or 12 in the afternoon. And even with the kids on summer break, the ferry wasn't too busy. There were some teenagers and some kids running around on the ferry, but there were plenty of spaces on the ferry, which was really nice. I love this ferry ride. You get a great glimpse of the Sydney Opera House right as you depart, but also you get to enjoy great views of the water from the ferries. But I think it's only a 30-minute ferry ride, so just long enough to relax and enjoy the views, but not too long so you get bored or to get seasick. Once we got off the ferry, it's just a short walk down to the beach, but you get to go through the Corso, which is their kind of promenade outside where you have a bunch of food and a lot of shopping options there. We spent a couple hours just bumming it on the beach after that, and also took a dip in the water, although it was extremely choppy and you got pummeled by a couple waves. So if you're going, just be careful of that. My favorite part about Manly Beach, or Manly I should say, is the walk from Manly Beach to Shelley Beach. If you go from Manly Beach to the west, there's a little walkway that you can take to get to Shelley Beach, which is just another cove on the other side. But this walk is just beautiful. It's just a paved trail, but you get to see great views of the ocean and the rocks along the coast. There's a lot of people just hanging out on the rocks, and there's just great vibes, just great beach vibes around. So I think that's my favorite part about Manly. On the way back from the beach, we ended up going through the promenade again, and we had a little bit of a sweet tooth, so we went to go get a cookie from Butter Boy. They have some massive cookies, which are quite expensive as well. I think they're $9 Australian, but they're served warm and they have a bunch of different flavors. I've only ever tried their chocolate chip, however, because that's what I always want to go back to because it's that good. Also, pro tip, if you're taking the ferry to and from Manly and it's a windy day, or if the waves are choppy for any reason, do not sit outside. We decided to sit outside on our return trip from Manly back into the city, and we got drenched. We just got mauled by spray from the boat, and we ended up moving, so it was fine. But if you don't want to get wet, or if you're just worried about that, then just don't sit outside. We also had the opportunity to go on a day trip to the Blue Mountains, which is about 2 hours northwest of Sydney CBD. Crystal's cousins were gracious enough to take some time on a Saturday afternoon to drive up with us to show us around the Blue Mountains and also surrounding areas. We went to a bakehouse that served some Aussie meat pies, which they said was an essential Aussie road trip experience, and so had the full experience there. We had this lamb and garlic meat pie that was just so good. It was so tender and so flavorful on the inside, but the crust was so flaky and so good. I also got my first taste of kangaroo. Can't say it's my favorite protein, but I think it's pretty good. It's not too gamey, but it definitely has a distinct flavor to it. But the way they cooked it was really good, really tender, and kind of akin to like beef or just red meat in general. Afterwards, we took a walk at Lura Cascades, a short walk down to the water, or we were trying to get to the waterfall, but apparently some of the trail was closed because there were some down trees or something. So we only got partway through, but that was a nice walk. And after that, they drove us to Three Sisters, which is a rock formation out in the Blue Mountains. There's like a little viewing area that you can kind of drive up to and take pictures of the Three Sisters and the surrounding landscapes. This might have been the most expansive view that I've ever seen in my life. Like, I walked up to it and I was amazed at how far you could see and how far the trees reached. Like, I couldn't see where the trees ended. I was joking with her cousins that if I ever got lost in these trees, I think I would be dead. Like, I don't think there would be any hope for me because there are just trees forever and ever. And then before we headed home, we headed to the Lura Mall, which is just a cute little shopping district located in Katoomba, right by the Blue Mountains. There's some really cute shops and restaurants here. We had some ice cream and had a late lunch here, but we were able to go to some jewelry stores and some op shops, which is what the Aussies call thrift stores, which I think is the cutest name in the world. But at the op shops, I was able to grab some clothes, which was really nice. But yeah, this was just a beautiful experience. Really nice to get out into the nature. We were spending a lot of time in the city until this point, and so to be able to get out and be totally surrounded by nature and by trees was such a treat. And I don't think this would have been something we would have done if we didn't have access to a car and if Crystal's cousins weren't able to drive us, and so we're really grateful for that. One thing I want people to know about Sydney is that it is an elite coffee town. Not that I've been to a ton of places where coffee is supposed to be quote unquote elite, but I think Sydney collectively has the best coffee in the world. Like, we went to so many cafes that were just so good. Do not sleep on Sydney coffee. Label is one of the spots we went to in CBD. It's this really cute little approachable curbside spot, right? I think it's like a block or two from the Queen Victoria building. I had a cold brew that I think literally had me rethinking what I thought I knew about cold brew. This cold brew was just the most refreshing, fruity, complex drink that I've ever had. I looked at the tasting notes for the beans that they use for this cold brew. It's a blend that they make specifically for their cold brew, and it said notes of grape juice and bubble gum. And I think normally if I saw that on tasting notes for beans, I think I would be turned off by it. But boy, am I glad that I had this cup of coffee, because it just blew my mind. This coffee was just so fruity and bright without having any of the acidity that comes with those types of flavors sometimes. Highly recommend. I think my favorite coffee of the entire trip was at Gumption. This is a little unassuming place that's located in the Strand Arcade right off of the Pitt Street Mall, which is right in the CBD. Crystal's cousin had talked about it a couple times and said that this place had her favorite coffee. And so we had passed by it a couple times without realizing it. And once I tried it, I think the first time I had an iced coffee. And it was one of the most refreshing cups of iced coffee that I'd ever had. I don't normally get iced coffee and expect my mind to be blown, but this was just so delicious. That first time Crystal had an iced latte, and I had some of that and was just so impressed with their espresso blend. It is just so sweet and a little bit of nutty, but it just works so well with milk that I think I went back to Gumption to have their iced latte and then an additional time to go get their beans as well. I got a couple 500-gram packets of Sibylla's brew. I think if I had an espresso machine, I would have definitely gotten their espresso blend, which is because it was just so good. I don't think I can stop thinking about it, but I don't have an espresso machine, so I decided to try their signature blend. I think it says, yeah, Sibylla's brew is a chameleon with enough shades to match most moods. So I think it's just kind of a do-all blend. And oh, it smells so good. I can't wait to have some tomorrow morning. The vibes in the cafe are great, but I really love their seating. They have a little seating area in the arcade. And it's not a spot where you would go to study or work or anything, but it's just a great spot to just go grab a coffee and take a seat to just take a break from a shopping trip or something and to just people watch. Another place I want to shout out, not just for their coffee, but just for the whole experience, is Paramount Coffee Project. This is a little cafe and brunch spot near Surrey Hills, which is a nice neighborhood that we had visited. And this place just has immaculate vibes, immaculate design. I think, like, if I were to make a cafe, I want it to feel like how it feels at Paramount Coffee Project. The coffee was extremely solid here, but I think the star of the show was actually the food, with the brunch food here. We had a couple things. We had crumbed eggs on toast and also an avocado toast. And the crumbed eggs, they said, was one of their signature dishes, and this was something that I've never had before. Delicious. But for me, what stole the show was the avocado toast. This is the best avocado toast that I've ever had, I think. But their eggs were cooked to perfection. The avocado was seasoned perfectly. And the bread was really good. The bread is from AP Bakery, which is right upstairs of Paramount Coffee Project. But again, one of the best avocado toasts that I've ever had. If you have a chance to get it, please try it. However, this is just not the place to go if you're on a budget. I think we spent $80 Australian just on breakfast, and that's including the coffee, but I think that is just an absurd amount to spend on brunch. Something else I just want to highlight real quick about the food scene here is the gelato here is so good. It might just be top tier as well. My favorite spot was Mapo in Newtown. They had this caramel flavor, and usually I don't like caramel ice cream or caramel gelato because it just ends up being way too sweet, but we tried a little bit of it and it has this perfect bitter and roasty flavor of caramel without being overpoweringly sweet, which I thought was super good. One of my favorite gelatos I've ever had. We also went to Riverino Gelato as well. This place had the best texture of gelato that I've ever had. Just super silky, super creamy, super rich, super good. And the last one we went to was Messina. I didn't personally have gelato when I went to Messina, actually. I had like a lychee coconut sorbet situation, which was delicious. Perfect for the 40 degrees Celsius, 100 and something Fahrenheit day that we got it on. Overall, this was just such an epic trip. Like, it was just so much fun. So great to escape the winter weather here in the Northwest and get into some summer sun, and also be able to explore the city a little bit better. But I gotta say, the best part about this trip was the people that we met throughout the trip, Crystal's family and everybody that we met. This trip wouldn't have been nearly as epic, or actually this trip wouldn't have happened at all if it weren't for all of you and welcoming us into your home and giving us your time and showing us around the city. So big shout out to Crystal's family. I hope if you're watching this, thank you so much. We had the greatest time in Sydney and we can't wait to be back. Well, that about wraps it up for the Sydney trip recap in this week's vlog. I'll see y'all in next week's vlog, and hopefully we keep this momentum going and keep vlogging every other week through 2026. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.